Alright. I cut off, my video cut off. This is what Facebook do to me, and plus I'm in the mountains, so hey, I gotta take the good with the bad, you know. So I done lost my thoughts. What was I at? Oh, what Christ was saying, but just to get off of that, man, because I done lost that thought. So let's go on another thought where these people want to argue with all, or want to argue with us, or argue with people, and then they don't know the Bible. So yeah, so that's one thing that I was wanting to talk. So let me keep going on. Okay. We understand that these people inside the scriptures, once again, the Israelite culture of that time, they were not Americanized people. You know, even the Greek and the Roman side of Israel, they still understood more of the figurative language than we as Americans today understand. So, what I would say, in order to understand scriptures, one thing you need to do, you might need to have a refresher course, or to study a little bit about the Hebrewic mindset, the Hebrewic thought, and look how they view scriptures. I mean, I think that would be very important to understand the mindset and to understand what the scriptures is talking about. And a lot of people would try to take you away from people like Josephus and all of them, because these are people who actually lived back then, and then they can give you a better understanding of the Israelite culture, a better understanding how we operated and how we did things. You need to know this to understand the Bible. Like, for instance, let me give you an example. I was in there, no man knows the day or the hour, right? Christ told them the generation who was going to return, which was the first century generation. But he did not tell them the day or the hour. But that is us on the outside looking in. Do you people really understand where he pulled no man knows the day or the hour from? Where did he get that terminology from? Is he just saying that they were not supposed to know the specific day and hour that he was coming? No. That's what we think as Americans. But once you go back to your Hebrewic roots, no man knows the day or the hour. That was an idiom for the Feast of Trumpets. Once again, for the Feast of Trumpets. You see, in the Feast of Trumpets, it came during the new moon. So they had to celebrate the feast during the new moon. The problem with the new moon is it's a little... All right, sorry y'all, I'm going down the mountain. My internet probably gonna cut in and out. But the problem with the new moon is it's a little slither. So before they could celebrate the Feast of Trumpets, they had to take 2 eyewitnesses and put them on the mountain. And they knew around when the new moon was going to come around, but they didn't know the exact day or hour, because it's just a little slither in the way that the moon changes its phase. It's hard to go from the last phase of the full moon to the new moon. So they knew, hey, any day now, but they didn't know exactly when to start celebrating the Feast of Trumpets. Now, what else was the Feast of Trumpets called? The Feast of Trumpets was also called the Wedding Feast, and it was also called the Judgment Feast, the Feast of the Judgment. So, when Christ told them no man knows the day or the hour I will return, he was telling them the Feast of Trumpets was to be fulfilled when I return during your generation. That Feast of Trumpets is going to be fulfilled. That final judgment is going to come. My wedding feast is going to come. The bridegroom is going to meet the bride. That's going to come. But, I mean, well, so be prepared, because that is going to happen around the destruction of the temple. See, they'll take you to Matthew, 24 and 30, around that, saying, hey, look, Christ couldn't have came in the first century because no man knows the day or the hour. But for some reason, they don't want to take you to Matthew 24, 1 through 3, which is the beginning of the chapter, and let you know, hey, all of this information is the events that goes around the destruction of the temple. So Christ did not, or nor the disciples did not know when he was going to send Rome to destroy the temple in Jerusalem, which is what Daniel's 70 weeks is all about. But I'm going to hit that in a minute. But anyway, so Christ was letting them know, hey, you don't know when this is going to happen. You're not going to know when this is going to happen. Just like you're not going to know when to celebrate the feast of trumpets. But when it do happen, know that this is the judgment, the final judgment. Know that this is the wedding feast. This is when the new covenant comes for everybody during the destruction of the temple. See, the only reason why we know the temple was destroyed in 70 AD is because it's history to us. It's our history. We can open up a history book and read when the temple was destroyed in Jerusalem for the final time. They could not do that because it was their future, not our future. It was their future in the first century. It was their generation. They knew that the temple was supposed to be destroyed. Their generation. They knew that the Feast of Trumpets was supposed to be fulfilled. Their generation. They just did not know when. Just like they didn't know when their new moon was coming. So that was a Hebrew idiom dealing with the Feast of Trumpets. But if you don't go and research your history, you're not going to know this stuff. You're just going to be like, look, man, nobody knows the day or the hour. No watch. How do you know if Christ didn't even know? All of those ridiculous arguments. That ain't even got nothing to do with that. You got to go back to your roots and understand your culture. Every feast meant something that was the Most High's plan onto how the kingdom of heaven was going to come on earth. So, you better believe in that also. Let's hit something also. So, the temple was destroyed 70 AD. That means the final judgment, that judgment that you read in Revelation, with the books were open and all that. See, that's another thing. There was another idiom for the Feast of Trumpets. The books being open. Every Feast of Trumpets, they would go open the books and read in the books and say the deeds of people, which AKA was symbolic for the book of life. See, all of this stuff is in our history if you go and research it. But now, so all of those things in Revelation that people are trying to tell you about America or about Russia or Donald Trump and all that stuff, no. Revelation was about all the events that led up to 70 AD, the destruction of the temple, the final judgment, and the new kingdom of heaven coming on earth spiritually, which we see in the new covenant under Christ, where we no longer have to go through any of the judgment or any of the curses or any of the death because we fall short of the glory. We have a mediator, which is Christ, who can keep us on good standards with the Father. This is what the new covenant looks like. This is what the new kingdom of heaven looks like on the physical realm. But in the spiritual realm, once you leave this flesh, you get to see it. You get to go into that community. You get to go be with the saints and all that stuff. But until now, we only can live on this realm. But anyway, if all of this occurred, how can somebody teach you that you are in the Mosaic covenant? How can somebody teach you that you got to do all of these feast days? See, this is what Paul was all talking about. See, Paul, and he understood, and all the rest of them, when they started leaning toward more, because Paul came from a different angle, because Paul was taught strictly from the Holy Spirit and from Christ, according to Paul. While the disciples, they went through the whole being taught with Christ, Christ being born under the law of Moses, and then Christ dying, Christ resurrecting, and his promise coming back. See, Paul had to go through some of that, but Paul was mainly going through the conversion into the new covenant. While the disciples, they started more with the old covenant of Moses, and then you can see the conversion. That's what Acts is all about, them converging into the new covenant. But if we're in the new covenant, because we got to be, out of the things Christ said occurred, aka even his second coming. So you're in the new covenant. So these people who haven't learned the culture, who really don't believe the Bible, who keep trying to push everything into our future, even though the Bible told the disciples it was going to be their future, they're trying to tell you, they're trying to bind you under the law of Moses. And you know, if you adhere to the covenant, if you adhere to the law of Moses, once you leave this plane, you will be judged under the law of Moses. If you adhere to the new covenant, you will be judged under Christ. So, if you want to put your salvation in an old covenant, listening to these people who don't study, who don't read the Bible, who could care less about their culture, but since they got a following, they feel real special, and then they feel that the Most High blessed them under this Mosaic thinking, which in reality, you're not being blessed. He's hoping that you open your eyes and you keep reading the scriptures. But anyway, so I'm telling y'all, I don't eat pork, I don't eat shrimp, none of that stuff, because I was brought into the truth under the Mosaic covenant, and I see that my culture did not partake in this stuff, and I believe in the culture. So I don't partake in it because of my culture. It's not because I feel that I'm going to be damned and go to hell or be cursed and all of that. You see, the new covenant itself says it's going to be unlike the covenant he gave them on the mountain. So how can the new covenant have curses and blessings pertaining to the Mosaic covenant if this is a whole totally new covenant unlike that covenant? See, when there was a change in the priesthood, there also had to be a change in the law. And when you had to change the law, there had to be a change in the covenant. It all goes together. That's what Hebrews is about. So these people try to condemn you under the law of Moses, got everybody spending their money on fringes and all of that stuff, not understanding that the Most High himself let Christ wipe out the genealogy records in Jerusalem. They destroyed all genealogy records. The Romans went in there, they wiped out everything. What the Israelites did not destroy, the Roman army did. They took all genealogy records, all of their stuff, they destroyed it. And what people do, they come thousands of years later and say, hey, let's redo that. But this is the kicker. Then they tell you, you pretty much can pick and choose what you want to do out of the Mosaic law. Like the Most High ever said that. And this is how they do it. Well, you don't have to have a temple, because then they'll go through some scripture where Israel had to go into captivity and the temple was destroyed. Not saying that the temple was rebuilt and the Most High allowed them to go back to temple worship. But anyway, so they'll tell you, well, just do it with the best of your abilities. The best of your abilities? What law, statute, or commandment did the Most High ever tell them under the Mosaic covenant, hey guys, do what I say with the best of your abilities? No, that's picking and choosing, because now you can pick and choose what's the best of your abilities and what's not the best of your abilities. That's why we needed a new covenant anyway, because technically, if we still was under the Mosaic covenant, we would never leave the curses, because people don't do the Sabbath right, they don't do the Jubilee Sabbath right, they don't do the 7-year Sabbath right, they really ain't went to no feast days in Jerusalem, they don't do none of the statues and all of that stuff right, they don't have a priest to make an atonement for their sins, so you still stay in sin, and you will never have your sin atoned for, which means you always will fall short, which means you will always go against the law of Moses, which means you will forever be cursed until Christ returns, which people say is in the future, because supposedly he's supposed to return, and then Satan is going to be bound 1,000 years, and literally, and Christ is going to rule 1,000 years, and that's going to happen soon. Nobody knows when, but they believe it because they don't want to believe what Christ said. They believe it because they made the thought up in their own mind. But we're in the new covenant, so we got people teaching people that they're in the Mosaic covenant, and then they tell you, hey, brother, sister, you got to do the law, statutes, and commandments, and then this is what I ask you to do to them. Anybody tell you that, tell them, say, hey, name all the law, statutes, and commandments that you know right now, and see if they can get past 20. They don't know it. It just sounds good. And in the Bible, the Most High never said, pretend to do my law, statutes, and commandments. Pretend to act like you know what you're talking about. And then when somebody don't do it, talk bad about that person. I haven't never seen the Most High ever tell anybody under the Mosaic covenant to do any of that. But I see it all day, every day. Hold on. My bad, I wasn't even looking down. So by going by the two different covenants, you get judged differently. Yeah, if you are in the Mosaic covenant, according to Paul, you get judged by that covenant. So, and what I like, it was a guy from GOCC. They have his testimony on YouTube. He was a cameraman for Elder Ricard. Anyway, he passed, and he went to the heavenly realm. And to make a long story short, the angels allowed him to come back because he wasn't going to make it. They was not going to allow him into heaven. Now, I can only speculate because he told, Elder Ricard said he gave him a note saying, Second Esdras is real. So if you read what happened in Second Esdras, you know that they went to their little Sheol place, and then they will be locked up, those who fall short of the Mosaic covenant, and the people who did not fall short of the Mosaic covenant were left home, was let go. But this is just me. If you're going to tell the Most High you want to be under the Mosaic covenant, why wouldn't he not judge you under the Mosaic covenant? And then I hear a testimony of a man claiming to be under the Mosaic covenant, dying, and when he died, found out that he didn't make it to the kingdom, and they sent him back so he can do a retrial, thinking that what Paul said was kind of accurate, that you was going to get judged under that covenant. Now, that's just my thoughts. But